The Helmand Valley stretched like a jagged scar across the Afghan landscape. Its steep walls rose to meet a sky bleached white by an unforgiving sun. A convoy of dust-minus-caked Humvees crawled along the valley floor, the silence of their approach broken only by the crackle of radio checks and the low rumble of engines straining against the incline. Bravo 6, this is Echo 2. Visual sweep clear, proceeding to checkpoint Alpha. Then came the sound that veterans hear in their nightmares, the hollow thump of an IED, followed by the metallic screech of shrapnel tearing through armor. The lead Humvee disappeared in a cloud of dust and fire. Contact! Contact! Pressure rounds cut through the air like angry hornets, the red streaks marking paths of certain death. Marines scrambled for cover, their boots kicking up dirt as they dug behind disabled vehicles and shallow depressions. Return fire erupted, but it was scattered. Unfocused apanic response against an enemy that seemed to materialize from the ridge lines themselves. Mrs. Miller, were pinned down at grid 794, taking heavy fire from multiple positions. Blood pooled beneath a young corporal slumped against a wheel well, his eyes wide with the shock that precedes death. 3 Marines dragged a wounded comrade behind a smoking engine block, rounds impacting inches from their heels. Inside the Tactical Operations Center at Forward Operating Base Chapman, 30 miles from the kill zone, a wall of monitors displayed the unfolding disaster in grainy drone footage. Heat signatures bloomed along the ridgelines, insurgents entrenched in positions that commanded every approach and exit. Colonel James Harrison stood with his hands clasped behind his back, his weathered face illuminated by the blue glow of tactical displays. At 50-2, he'd survived 3 deployments, earned 2 Purple Hearts, and developed the 1,000-yard stare that came from writing too many letters to too many families. Now he watched another disaster unfold with the detached calculation of a man accustomed to weighing lives against regulations. 480 personnel confirmed in the valley. Major Ellis reported, his voice steady despite the chaos on screen. Air support negative, Harrison replied. To F-16 seconds are in the area, but they're outside the engagement window. Rules of engagement are clear, danger close is under 600 meters. Sir, they're getting torn apart out there. Harrison's jaw tightened. I'm aware, Major. He turned to a communications officer. Get me a casualty estimate. Prep the MED, EVA Seabirds. The room fell silent except for radio chatter and keyboard clicks. 8 dozen officers and analysts monitored screens, their faces masks of professional detachment concealing the frustration beneath. From the shadows at the back of the room, a figure stepped forward. Sergeant Olivia Liv Reeves stood 5-4, her frame compact but athletic. Where others projected authority through size and volume, she carried herself with the quiet confidence of someone who'd proven herself where it mattered. Her dark hair was pulled back in a regulation bun, her ACS Army combat uniform crisp despite the Afghan heat. In her hands, she held an M2010 enhanced sniper rifle with the familiarity of someone handling an extension of their own body. I can end this. She said, her voice calm but carrying absolute certainty. Every head in the room turned. Some faces registered surprise. Other skepticism, a few barely concealed disdain. Colonel Harrison didn't bother looking at her.
Sergeant Reeves.
Return to your station. Sergeant, this isn't a shooting competition. Liv didn't move. Her eyes fixed on the screens where Marines fought and died in real minus time. Her fingers tightened imperceptibly around the rifle stock. Sir, I have clear sight lines from OP Delta. That's an order, Sergeant Reeves. On the main monitor, the young lieutenant crawled toward a fallen comrade, tracers cutting the air inches above his helmet. Blood darkened the sand beneath both men. Liv's gaze shifted from the screen to the colonel's back, and then she turned and disappeared into the shadows, taking her rifle with her. The image on screen froze, then rewound. Text appeared 70 hours earlier. Dawn at Forward Operating Base Chapman painted the mountains in shades of amber and rust beauty, contrasting sharply with the base's utilitarian ugliness. Concrete barriers, razor wire, and plywood structures arranged in defensive clusters. He shimmered above the landing strip where a Blackhawk spun up for another mission into hostile territory. Inside a small arms maintenance facility, Sergeant Olivia Reeves sat cross-legged on the concrete floor. Before her lay the disassembled components of an M2010 sniper rifle, each piece meticulously arranged, metal surfaces gleaming with fresh oil. Liv moved with practiced efficiency, her hands steady as she inspected the bolt face for carbon buildup. She ran an oil patch through the barrel, checking for imperfections invisible to untrained eyes. The Leupold Mark IV scope received special attention, its lenses cleaned with the care reserved for surgical instruments. This wasn't standard maintenance. This was ritual. Next to her lay a small green notebook filled with neat handwriting ballistic tables for various ranges and conditions, hand-drawn mil-dot diagrams, and trajectory calculations. Where the military taught standardized formulas, Liv had developed her own refinements, tailored to her shooting style and Afghanistan's unique atmospheric conditions.
Reeves.
Most shooters just use the issued data books. A gravelly voice observed from the doorway.
Interlocking fields of fire
Liv didn't
would make
startle.
any approach deadly.
Few people could sneak up on her, and William Wild Bill Carter wasn't among them. At 60-8, the retired Marine Master Gunnery Sergeant moved with the telltale stiffness of old injuries and hard miles.
Why don't you stick to your lane,
His
Sergeant?
presence at Chapman was unusual. Officially, he served as a civilian
Liv's
marksmanship
assessment stands.
consultant.
We move forward as
Unofficially, everyone knew he was there to assess sniper effectiveness before the drawdown.
planned. The operational
Bill's
plan stands,
pale
Sergeant.
blue eyes had
OP
faded with
Delta only.
age but retained their sharpness. His gray hair was still cut high and tight, and a long scar ran from his left temple to his jaw, a souvenir from Desert Storm that he wore without self-consciousness.
We
He
have a
leaned
clear
against the
objective
door
and
frame,
a robust
arms
plan
crossed
to
over a
achieve
chest that remained solid despite his years. Standard data assumes standard conditions, Liv replied, not looking up as she reassembled the rifle with fluid motions. Afghanistan is anything but standard. Bill's weathered face creased in approval. Your old man taught you that. The mention of her father caused Liv's hands to pause for just a heartbeat, but Bill noticed he noticed everything. He did. She acknowledged, sliding the bolt home with a satisfying click. Jack Reeves had been one of the Corps' finest snipers, with confirmed kills in both Iraq invasions that rewrote the book on long-range engagement.
Liv is
To
more
Liv,
capable than you think.
he'd simply been Dad,
With
the
this
man who
ambush
taught her
coming,
to
we're
shoot
gonna
on
need
their small
everyone at their
Texas
best.
ranch,
I understand.
who emphasized patience and breath control above all else. The bullet doesn't care about your feelings. He'd tell her as they lay prone on a hill overlooking the makeshift range. Physics is physics. By age 10, she could outshoot most adults at
Everything in order,
local
Staff Sergeant?
competitions.
Yes, Lieutenant.
By
All teams are ready
16,
for departure.
she developed the
Move out.
almost unnatural stillness that separated good shooters from great ones, the ability to drop her heart rate on command, to exist between heartbeats. When Jack died in a vehicle rollover in Iraq, when Liv was 18 not from enemy fire, but from a moment's inattention on a poorly maintained road, he left her his match minus, grade Remington 700 in the data book he kept throughout his career. The last entry, written the day before his death, read, "Every shot not taken is a life that might have been saved." She enlisted a week after his funeral. Bill crossed the room and lowered himself onto an ammo crate, his knees protesting audibly. Your rifle's already cleaner than the day it left the factory. What are you really doing in here,
Convoy in
Reeves?
danger. Enemy
Liv
on ridge
secured the
lines.
scope rings with practiced precision.
We're sticking to the
Preparing.
original plan.
For what?
Sir,
You've
Liv
been
is
stuck
calling
on
again.
Overwatch duty
made
since
my
you got
decision.
here. Her expression remained neutral, but something flickered in her eyes. Carefully controlled frustration. Things change. Bill leaned forward, lowering his voice, though they were alone. I knew your father in Fallujah, you know. Second battle, he saved my entire platoon with shots that shouldn't have been possible. He paused, studying her face. Jack would be proud of what you did in Kandahar 5 years back, even if those desk jockeys at the Pentagon buried it. Liv's head snapped up, her composure cracking. You know about that? The old sniper's laugh was dry as desert wind. Girl, I helped create the Ghost Protocol. You think I wouldn't recognize one of our own? He tapped his temple. Go 7, if memory serves. Liv instinctively adjusted her sleeve, concealing the small tattoo on her inner wrist, crossed with the number 7 inside. It identified her as part of an elite sniper program that officially didn't exist, operators who worked beyond conventional command structures, taking shots that never appeared in after-minus action reports. Shots like the ones in Kandahar that had saved 30 Delta for operators, but cost her any chance at normal career advancement. That program was discontinued, she said carefully. And I'm just a regular Marine sniper assigned to overwatch duties. Sure you are. Bill nodded toward the notebook. That why you're calculating holds for shots beyond 2,000 meters. He closed the notebook. Old habits. Bill's eyes softened. They buried you because you embarrassed them. A female sniper outperforming their golden boys threatens too many egos. He snorted. Politics over performance. Same old story. I follow orders. Liv said flatly. So did your father. Until he didn't. Bill stood with effort. Do you know what Jack told me once? Sometimes the right shot means breaking the wrong rule. Smart man, your old man. He turned to leave, then paused. Battalions moving into Helmand Valley tomorrow. Briefings at 1800. You might want to sit in, even if you're not on the roster. His eyes sharpened. Never know when things might change. After he left, Liv sat motionless, her hand resting on the rifle. Then she opened her notebook to a fresh page. At the top, she wrote Helmand Valley firing solutions and wind patterns. She had preparations to make. The dining facility at Chapman resembled every other DFAC in Afghanistan industrial everything. From the food to the furniture to the lighting. The air hung thick with the smell of overcooked vegetables, strong coffee, and the distinct odor of too many people in body, armor eating in a confined space. Liv moved through the serving line with practiced efficiency, accepting whatever the contracted servers ladled onto Hurt Ray without comment. Powdered eggs, turkey sausage that might have been rubber in a previous life, and toast that could double as body armor. She nodded her thanks and turned to find a seat. The DFAC wasn't full, but finding a table was still complicated. As she walked past groups of Marines, conversations quieted, shoulders stiffened, and eyes found somewhere else to look. Not from fear, but from the particular discomfort warriors felt around someone who didn't fit their mental model of what a warrior should be. Check it out, boys. The Princess Sniper graces us with her presence. Staff Sergeant Mike Donovan sat surrounded by his usual crew Marines who measured worth in bench press numbers and combat deployments. At 30-5, Donovan carried himself with the swagger of someone who'd never questioned his place in the hierarchy. His broad shoulders tested the limits of his uniform, and his face bore the weathered look of multiple deployments. Hi, Reeves. He called as she passed.
Not one more.
Heard you qualified expert again. They lowered the standards for you. Or did you get to shoot at the broadside of a barn? Chuckles rippled through his group. Liv kept walking, her expression unchanged. She found an empty table in the corner and sat with her back to the wall. Habit born from both tactical training and social necessity. The diversity hire strikes again. Donovan's stage minus whispered. Pentagon needs its numbers, even if it means giving a rifle to someone who can barely carry it. More laughter, louder now. Liv ate methodically. Each movement economical, her eyes occasionally scanning the room with the automatic awareness of someone who'd learned to track threats both foreign and domestic.
Exhales.
Across the DFAC, other eyes watched the exchange. Lieutenant Jason Miller, 20-6 and only 8 months into his commission, observed with a frown. Unlike others, Miller had actually reviewed the personnel files of everyone in his unit, including the heavily redacted file of Sergeant Treves. Next to Miller sat Commander Marcus Warren of SEIL Team 3, a compact man with the contained energy of a coiled spring. At 40-5, Warren had the credentials and scars to command respect without demanding it. He'd arrived at Chapman 2 days prior for joint operation planning, and his presence had shifted the base's atmosphere. "Your Marines always this welcoming?" Warren asked Miller, nodding toward Donovan's table.
Lucky, that was too close.
Miller shifted uncomfortably. Donovan's old school. Good Marine, just set in his
fire is
ways.
still dropping.
Old school. Sauron repeated, his tone neutral but weighted. His gaze moved to Liv, sitting alone. That's Sergeant Reeves? Miller nodded, overwatching intelligence support. Keeps to herself. Warren's expression remained unreadable, but something flickered in his eyes, recognition perhaps. She's a qualified sniper. On paper, Miller replied. Colonel Harrison keeps her on base operations. Says her skills are better
They just
utilized in
disappear?
support roles. Does he
think
now?
so.
It wasn't a question. Warren stood, picking up his tray.
Donovan,
Instead of heading to the dish return, he walked directly to Liv's table and sat
that,
down
sir.
across from her. Mind if I join you? Sergeant.
All right.
Liv looked up, surprise flickering across her features
Clear.
before the professional mask returned. Of course not. Sir. Warren sat,
Medevac.
his movements controlled and deliberate. Commander Marcus Warren. Team 3, I know who you are, sir. A corner of Warren's mouth twitched. I imagine you do. He took a bite of eggs, grimaced slightly.
open.
Heard there's a range session this afternoon.
Watch your sector.
You planning to attend? I've already qualified this month, sir.
Valley secure. Requesting
Not what I
immediate
asked.
evacuation
Well
support.
studied him,
Over.
trying to read the intent behind the question. I usually shoot every day, sir. When operational tempo allows. Warren nodded. Good. I'll see you there. Across the DFAC, Donovan and his group watched the exchange with poorly concealed interest. Hi. IL commander deliberately sitting with the female sniper sent a message one that would ripple through the base's social dynamics.
let's begin the
3
debrief.
hours later, under the brutal afternoon sun, Liv lay prone on the firing line. The range stretched before her. Steel targets at intervals from 300 to 1500 meters. Heat mirages danced above the ground, creating the
Proof
optical
those
illusions
protocols
that
still
separated amateur shooters from professionals. She controlled her breathing in for 4, hold for 4, out for 4. Her heart rate dropped to 50-5 beats per minute. The Leupold scope's
about
crusher
Reeves?
is settled on the furthest target,
Yeah, she's a
barely
legend
visible
now.
to the naked eye. Around her, other Marines worked through their qualifications, shots cracking at irregular intervals. Most struggled with anything beyond 800 meters. Liv waited, reading the wind through the mirage, feeling the rhythm of the gusts, timing her shot for the lull between breaths of wind. She squeezed, not pulled the trigger. The rifle barked, recoil flowing through her body like water. Before the sound
Hellman
faded,
Valley.
she was already working the bolt, chambering another round. 10
Lessons
shots, and hits, all at 1500 meters. When she
Sometimes
stood
the
and
right
cleared her
shot
weapon,
means breaking the wrong rule.
she found Bill watching from under a sunshade, Commander Warren beside him. Good shooting, Sergeant. Warren said as she approached. Thank you, sir. I've seen better. Bill interjected, his tone gruff. The fourth shot drifted right by an inch.
Liv has done
Live's
an
expression
outstanding
didn't change,
upholding the Ghost
but
Protocol
understanding
rights.
passed between them.
Agreed.
In front of officers, especially ones who mattered, Bill would never show favoritism or excessive praise. Roger that. I'll compensate next time. See that you do. Bill turned to Warren. She's competent. Needs more experience reading Afghan wind patterns. Warren's
about
eyes
that new
narrowed
sergeant?
slightly.
She's
Does
something
she?
else.
Again, not a question. The silent communication between the two men spoke volumes of professional respect. Shared secrets. And the weight of decisions being made above life's pay grade. Minus that evening, as darkness settled over the base and most Marines retreated to their quarters or the MWR tent. Liv found herself summoned to Bill's makeshift office, a converted shipping container filled with ballistic charts,
Bearing
rifle
Liv's record,
parts,
it's about
and the
bigger
accumulated detritus of a
proved
lifetime spent
indispensable.
sending bullets long distances.
Indispensable, I agree.
Close the door, he instructed when she entered. She complied, then stood at parade rest. You wanted to see me? Drop the formality, Reeves. We're off the record.
Physics
Bill sat
is
behind
physics,
a field desk covered
but
in maps and
courage
intelligence
is
photos.
choice.
Commander Warren asked about you. Liv's pulse quickened. but her voice remained steady.
Every shot not taken is
What
a
did
life
he
that
want to
might have been
know?
lost.
If you were the same Reeves who made those shots in Kandahar 5 years ago, the one they call Ghost 7, our composure slipped slightly. That operation was classified. My involvement was expunged from all records. Official records, maybe. Bill leaned back in his chair. But Warren was leading the Delta team you saved. Man doesn't forget who pulls his ass out of the fire from 2,000 meters. Liv absorbed this information, mind racing through implications. Why is he here? Bill stood and moved to a wall map of Helmand Province. Tomorrow's operation isn't just a routine sweep. Intelligence indicates a high-minus value target from our Spetsnaz sniper, who's been training Taliban fighters in advanced tactics. Same one who almost wiped out Warren's team before you intervened. They're using the battalion as bait. Liv said, understanding dawning. 480 Marines rolling into a valley that's perfect for an ambush. Bill's expression darkened. High casualties would justify reactivating certain programs, bringing certain assets back into play. Assets like me. The Ghost Protocol was never really discontinued. Just paused. Too much congressional oversight after some operations went sideways. Bill turned from the map, but dead Marines changed the political calculus real quick. Liv's hands clenched involuntarily. Does Colonel Harrison know? Harrison knows what he needs to know. To him, it's a standard sweep with acceptable risk. Bill's eyes hardened. The boys calling the shots from Langley and Washington see it differently. Why are you telling me this? Bill's weathered face softened slightly. Because your father was my friend. Because those 480 Marines don't deserve to die for someone's political chess game. He paused. And because I know you won't let them. I'm not on the operation roster. Harrison made that clear. No, you're not. Bill moved to a locked cabinet, withdrew a folder marked with classification stamps. But you are assigned to observation post Delta, which overlooks the entire valley. Routine Overwatch duty. He handed her the folder. Funny thing about OP Delta, perfect sight lines to every potential ambush position. Liv opened the folder, finding detailed topographical maps, weather data, and ballistic calculations for various points in the valley. I can't take action without authorization, she said carefully. No, you can't. Dill's expression was unreadable, but in the fog of war, sometimes communications break down. Sometimes soldiers have to make decisions based on the situation on the ground. He moved closer, lowering his voice. Your father understood that.
We're clear.
In Falia, he took 17 unauthorized shots that saved 40-3 Marines.
It was her all along.
They court-marshaled him, then quietly gave him a silver star and buried the whole thing. And if I make the same choice, then you better not miss. Bill turned away. Briefings in an hour. You should attend, even if you're just going to be sitting in an OP tomorrow. As Liv left the shipping container, the weight of tomorrow's decision
Sometimes
settled
the
on
right
her
shot
shoulders.
means breaking the wrong
480 Marines would enter that valley. How many would leave depended on choices she hadn't made yet, but would have to when the moment came. Minus, the briefing room buzzed with controlled energy. Apps covered every wall, and a table model of Helmand Valley dominated the center. Officers clustered in groups, reviewing routes and contingencies with the focused intensity of professionals preparing for violence. Colonel Harrison stood at the front, laser pointer in hand.
She saved us all.
His voice carrying practiced authority. Intelligence indicates minimal enemy activity in the eastern sector. Second platoon establishes blocking positions here while the main element sweeps south to north. Lev sat in the back,
Hey, good morning, Liv.
absorbing every detail. The plan was tactically sound. For a low-minus threat environment. For an ambush, it was a death sentence. The valley's geography created a perfect kill zone. Steep walls limiting escape routes. Narrow with preventing vehicle maneuver. Multiple elevated positions providing interlocking fields of fire. When Harrison opened for questions, Liv raised her hand. The colonel's gaze swept past Hurt Weiss before reluctantly acknowledging her. Sergeant. Liv stood and approached the sand table. Sir, the terrain presents significant ambush vulnerabilities. These ridgelines, she indicated the elevated positions, provide overlapping fields of fire covering all movement through the valley. If hostile forces have positioned crew minus served weapons here, and here, convoy would be trapped in a crossfire with minimal cover. Murmurs rippled through the room.
Keep breathing.
Lieutenant Muller leaned forward, studying the positions she'd indicated. Commander Warren watched from the back corner with interest. Harrison's jaw
Every
tightened.
shot not taken.
Your concerns are noted, Sergeant. However, current intelligence
Colonel, this is
indicates intelligence can be wrong, sir. The terrain doesn't lie. Liv pointed to specific features. These draws provide concealed approach routes for our PG teams. The valley width here narrows to less than 150 meters. Inside effective RPG range with no room for evasive maneuver.
The ghost saved
Staff
us.
Sergeant Donovan turned in his seat. Since when does Overwatch provide tactical assessment? Stay in your lane. Reeves. Several Marines chuckled, but Warren's voice cut through from the back. I've seen similar terrain used exactly as the Sergeant describes. The assessment has merit. Harrison's expression hardened further. The operational plan is set. We have air support available and artillery from Firebase Phoenix. He looked directly at Liv. Sergeant, while your enthusiasm is noted, tactical planning isn't your responsibility.
She's the ghost.
You'll be at OP Delta for routine observation. Nothing more. Liv held his gaze a moment longer than strictly appropriate. Understood, sir. As she returned to her seat, she caught Bill's eye. The old sniper gave an almost imperceptible nod. She had done what she could within the system. What came next would depend on decisions made in the moment, when regulations met reality. The briefing continued, but Liv's mind was elsewhere, calculating distances, wind speeds, and the number of rounds she could put down range before anyone realized she'd violated orders. In her notebook, she sketched firing solutions for every likely enemy position, memorizing angles and holds. Tomorrow, 480 Marines would enter that valley, and Sergeant Olivia Reeves would be watching through her scope, waiting for the moment when following orders became less important than saving lives.
For every Marine saved, there is a ghost who watches from the shadows.